that happened to me. And even now, I can't fully bring myself to believe it. At the time, I was in my third year of junior high school. Our family was a group of four. My father, my mother, my younger brother, who was still in elementary school back then, and myself. We had just finished watching the Kohaku New Year's Eve music show, and I went to bed hoping for a good first dream of the year. In Japanese culture, the first dream you have in the new year, usually on the night of January 1st or 2nd, is believed to foretell your luck for the coming year. But in the middle of the night, a nightmare woke me with a jolt. I can't remember what it was about, but my heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I was drenched in a sticky, cold sweat. It felt as if someone had poured ice water down my collar. I just froze there in bed, paralyzed in the same position I had jumped up in. A nightmare on the very first night of the year. It couldn't get any worse, I thought. Sleep wasn't coming back, so I headed to the living room to get a drink from the fridge. It was late. I didn't look at the clock, but it must have been around 2 a.m. To my surprise, my entire family was sitting there in front of the TV, huddled tightly together. The TV was on, but there was no broadcast at that hour. The screen was just a frozen image of some news program. There was no sound at all. What was worse, every single window in the house was flung wide open. The room was as freezing as the air outside. A sickening dread washed over me. "What are you guys doing? Have you lost your minds?" I yelled. My voice was trembling, but I was shouting mostly out of sheer panicked anger. My brother started to mutter something. But, so quietly I couldn't make it out, and then he started to cry. My parents said nothing. With blank, expressionless faces, they stood up, closed all the windows, and turned off the TV. They led my sobbing brother to the bedroom, simply saying, "That's enough, go to sleep." After such a disturbing start to the year, I couldn't sleep. I stayed in my room reading manga until the sun came up. In the morning, I asked them, "What was that all about last night?" They just looked at me with genuine confusion. Huh? The contrast between their lifeless faces from the night before and their bewildered expressions now was so sharp that I panicked. I wondered if they had been ghosts, but I knew telling my friends would be useless. No one would believe me. Besides, my girlfriend had broken up with me in December, so I tried to convince myself I was just hallucinating from emotional exhaustion. A while later, I woke up from another nightmare. This time, I remembered a fragment of it. Someone I didn't know had struck me across the back of the head. Even after waking, the top of my head throbbed with a dull pain. A strange, nonsensical thought kept looping in my mind. The convenience store will be safe. Terrified that a spirit was attacking me, I ran into the living room, but it was empty. There was a faint smell of burning in the air, maybe from the grilled meat we'd had for dinner. I thought back to that New Year's night, and once again I couldn't close my eyes. By early February, my body began to itch uncontrollably. At first, I thought it was just dry skin, but my back and head felt like they were literally on fire. I scratched until I bled. Nothing helped. Eventually, a dermatologist prescribed me an ointment. After my bath, as I was getting ready to apply the cream, my brother ran up and begged, "Let me do it! Let me put it on!" I turned my back to him, and suddenly he slapped me across the spine with all his might. The pain made me explode. "What is wrong with you, you idiot?" My brother always cried when I raised my voice, and I saw his eyes filling with tears. I expected him to wail, but he began to cry silently. His face grew paler and paler until it became a lifeless mask, tears just streaming down his cheeks. I felt a chill. I turned to my parents. They were also standing there with stone-cold faces, tears falling. They were in a total trance. Looking closer, I saw their lips moving ever so slightly, but I couldn't hear the words. I. That was all I could catch. In that instant, the world around me turned a brilliant, vivid crimson. Then it began to fade into a dull sepia. My consciousness started to slip away. and suddenly the scenery changed. I realized I was in a familiar place, my cousin's house. My uncle was looking at me with a very grave expression. Why am I here? I had no idea what was happening. People began to gather around. For a second, I thought, was it all a dream? But I didn't understand how I got to my uncle's, why my grandparents were there, or why my entire body was wrapped in bandages. I started to panic. Maybe it's better if he doesn't remember, my grandfather whispered, but my uncle disagreed. He needs to know. The killer hasn't been caught yet. The police are coming back in a week. Then my uncle told me everything. It turned out that on January 1st, our house had been set on fire. It burned to the ground with my family inside. I only survived because I had stepped out to go to the convenience store at that exact moment. But I must have run into the arsonist. He hit me over the head with something heavy and then beat me with a bat or a club. I had lost my memory due to the trauma. I had hovered between life and death in the hospital for a long time, and once I started to recover, my uncle took me in. It was already March. I had lived for 2 months with no memory, going through rehabilitation, and only now had the truth come back to me. I broke down. The realization that I had lost everything I loved hit me all at once, 2 months late. I just howled, ignoring my uncle and grandparents. My uncle turned away in silence, and my grandparents couldn't hold back anymore. They wept with me. My body was covered in bruises, wrapped in bandages like a mummy, and every movement felt like a knife. The wide open windows in the freezing night. My family huddled together. The nightmare of the attack. The world turning red. Every piece of the puzzle snapped into place with a sickening click. The killer was never found. When they finally took the bandages off my back, there was one single, clean patch of skin amidst the bruises and burns. It was a mark in the shape of my little brother's hand, the only place on my body that had remained untouched by injury. 5 years have passed since then. The bruises are long gone, and the handprint faded away with them.